Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. Live from Austin, Texas, broadcasting worldwide, it's Alex Jones.
Now, I want to, for the next 30 minutes or so, talk to John Young, the editor and one of the key founders of Cryptome.org. It's been around since 1996 by independent scholars and the architect John Young and others. And the New York Observer had an article that quoted myself, the original WikiLeaker, and it's got my quote in here, and I think it says it all, that his work is very important, said Alex Jones, the radio host and founder of Infowars.com. I don't really know of anybody who was posting secret, classified, and restricted, but also open source documents to a site and creating a library. And they cut my quote off there. I went on to say, before Cryptome. You have to say that he is the granddaddy of the WikiLeaks type phenomenon, and he was also knows some of the WikiLeakers and has had a critical view of Assange in the past. But now with all of this unfolding, we'll get John Young's breakdown on what he thinks is going on here. John, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Alex. Good to hear from you.
Good to have you here with us. We're going to break in a moment, but I have always stated that I believe Assange was being set up as a unwitting or perhaps witting asset of the CIA, like a Lee Harvey Oswald. We know there's the George Soros, Leslie Gelb, all of those connections there. And Wayne Madsen has agreed with you that it's suspicious. So has Webster Tarpley. Now it appears that they're going to use this as an electronic 9/11, and they're announcing to come in and start shutting down web freedom on the Internet.
Yeah, that's the kind of talk they're making. Now, I'll just say that I think they'd like to keep this going about another 10 years so they can keep asking for more money for it. So that I think they'll keep making these rumbling noises and hope that WikiLeaks or others like it will continue doing this thing because it's a tremendous way to raise funds for governments.
Again, they get to build their giant cybersecurity spying grids in the name of countering their own leakers.
That's right, and that's why they set up Cybercom, almost holding the hands of WikiLeaks to do so.
Amazing. Well, I mean, when we look at this, these women that set him up, one of them is absolutely, in Cuba running CIA ops. I mean, this is really, what do you think of Assange? Do you agree they're setting him up as the fall guy?
It's possible. Often people are fed up with their not being completely witting about it, and it's not hard to do because there's a constant drumbeat of we need to challenge authority, we need to challenge the CIA, we need to do this and that, and so this is a fairly well-known way to get some traction for a website or an initiative and to raise some money through it. And so the allegation of having sexual affairs is usually a component of that.
Well, they claim that about Daniel Ellsberg. Stay there. Segment coming up. We'll continue to get into your overall view of the history of WikiLeaks, who's behind it, what's really happening with Julian Assange, these massive hack attacks against Sweden and MasterCard and Visa. John Young of Cryptome.org is our guest. He knows a lot about at least the founding and of WikiLeaks and some of the people involved. But it's on record that Cass Sunstein, who said that they would basically sabotage the web by posing as freedom fighters and leakers, really introduced WikiLeaks to the world in 2007 in an editorial in the Washington Post that he wrote. So it's pretty much admitted this is a CIA group. As Mr. Young said on this show over a year ago and predicted much of what's now unfolded, if you're going to have $1 trillion war in Afghanistan or Iraq, you got to go stage some terror attacks, fund the opposition. If you're going to have an excuse to take over the web and spy on everybody, you've got to finance some leaks. And you see the media, the way they supported it, the way they always hype it up. But I think, again, Assange is a useful dupe that they're flushing down the toilet. But time will tell. I mean, specifically, John, walk through what you believe is happening here, the founding of WikiLeaks, where you think this is going.
Well, as you know, Alex, I was sucker punched into serving as a public face of WikiLeaks because I didn't want any of them to be named in the registration of the website. So I did it because I've done it for others. And I was led to believe that it was a public benefit operation. But within a few weeks, it announced that it intended to raise $5 million in the first 6 months. I said, wait a minute. That doesn't sound like public benefit to me. That sounds like a high-value funded program. And I mentioned two examples, CIA and Soros. I didn't accuse them of that. I said it would be like that, in which deep pockets are funding something. You can't just raise money by an unknown organization in that brief period of time. Now, we know that businesses do that, though, with the same kind of rollout. And so that was my first sense that this was a business operation, not a public benefit operation. And it's turned out to be that. So, others may make the link to CIA and Soros. By the way, both of whom use the same techniques of claiming to be public benefit, but far from being the only ones. Churches do it, educational institutions do it, and so forth. So that public benefit is a well-known subterfuge for actually making pretty good money these days. Of course, following the government model.
Okay, now, so, I mean, that's an important tidbit. You registered, and that's been confirmed, the WikiLeaks URL to begin with. When was that, John?
That was in December 2007.
And have you seen the fact that it was Cass Sunstein that basically introduced them to the world?
Say that again, Alex?
It was Cass Sunstein who introduced WikiLeaks to the world in that Washington Post article he wrote in 2007.
Yeah. That's right.
And this is a guy who openly says that he would pose as activists on the web as a pretext to bring censorship in. Now they're introducing the legislation to do just that. I mean, this is pretty obvious.
Well, it's certainly a complicated story and needs to be watched very carefully because I think there's a lot of smoke being blown about this and that a lot of the usual exculpation and accusation are being rolled out as part of that smoke blowing on all party sides. Some of the enthusiasts for WikiLeaks seem to be operating in concert with some of its opponents. It's like they're in lockstep to me.
Really? Okay, stay there. We're back in 1 minute, John. 1 minute break. I want to try to give you the floor so that I'm not just asking the questions. I want to give you the floor to break down what you think's going on and to cut through this fog of war, this fog of Infowar, and give us a clear image of what you, a true insider, thinks. It's the pretext to bring in censorship control of the web. With the whole cybersecurity system being built up, and John Young of Cryptome.org predicted this. He's, again, the original WikiLeaker. He's the guy that set up the website originally for them, but then he pulled out very quickly. Now, he said years ago, looks like a Soros-type operation. Now we have clear connections to that. That's even mainstream media. Now, this is a short segment, long segment coming up, John, but I want to give you the floor. You talk about this, this being foggy. Bring clarity. I mean, as somebody who probably knows more about this than anybody else, in the next 4 minutes, you've got the floor. What do you want to say to folks about this? What do you think is most important?
Well, follow the money is, of course, a cliche, but true here, is that for 2.5 years, WikiLeaks was on the verge of bankruptcy. They shut down for a few months and came back with bombshells, and suddenly the money started pouring in. This is a well-known business model to hand out free cigarettes and then sell them after you get the addiction started. And so that it's also a well-known government technique to create a crisis, claim that we can't survive without it, and then demand more taxes and more budget increases. And so just watch how this unfolds. So I expect that there will be continuing crises raised by the WikiLeaks model, and that from low-level secrecy documents, we'll start getting dribbles of higher secrecy documents. It'll be dribbled out over time as they're now dribbling out the secret stuff. And so we'll get some more bombshells because it's proven to be extremely effective. Now, you know that we've kept the war on terrorism going exactly the same way. And so that these imaginary wars are very lucrative, particularly to governments and contractors who service governments, as well as individuals who seem to oppose governments. So I'm down on anti-war people as well as pro-war people because they seem to be working hand in hand. So I think that that's the lesson we've learned running our site, that there are all sorts of threats imputed to Cryptome. None of that has come to pass. It was just a shell game to make it seem like there's a threat, but there wasn't. We've never been shut down except by one time by Microsoft, which then withdrew it. WikiLeaks was shut down once by a court, but then that was withdrawn. As far as I know, no officials have ever approached WikiLeaks with a threat. Now, maybe they have, and they've kept it quiet. We always publicize when we're approached by officials to let them know that this is something of a shell game. So we like to see more attention paid to how often this occurs, not by WikiLeaks, but by others who are rushing to their support, but also rushing to oppose them. There's money to be made in this. And I'm talking about the media. I'm talking about the so-called outlaws, the so-called dissidents. This is a big-time operation. Everyone's getting in on this. So I'm admiring this taking place. So it'll be kept going for quite a while. Money's pouring in from all sides to both sides of the fight. And so this use of the word cyber war is exactly part of that, our Infowar. Now, no, I'm not attacking your use of it, Alex, because you started this long ago. But right now, they're actually trying to escalate this into war-like crisis because this brings out the money.
Yeah, when I talk about Infowar, I mean getting people talking, saying no to tyranny. Their Infowar, they're talking about hacking and more the Pentagon version of that.
That's right. And so that's what Cybercom is now doing. They're going to milk cyber threats as much as they can over the next several years. And that's why I think that the Bradley Manning thing was a sting. That, they teach this stuff at Fort Huachuca, Alex, how people like Bradley Manning can do this and set up these sting operations. And so he was trained there. And so this smells like that to me. And there'll be more coming, though, because right now they're just testing the public's reaction with this low-level secrecy revelation, but the other stuff will come.
All right, stay there. We're going to come back in 3 minutes, John, long segment, and I want to continue to drill down into WikiLeaks. I mean, obviously, you've got all these Soros, CIA connections, Cass Sunstein writing 2.5 years ago, that they would infiltrate the web, pose as activists, create crisis, then bring in censorship legislation. That's now happening. We'll be right back. John Young of Cryptome.org, the original WikiLeaker. That's the New York Observer headline. He set up the site for him originally, but then immediately got suspicious of it. And this is the pretext. Just like they set up Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, they're now setting this up. And now they've got thousands of hackers attacking MasterCard, Visa, Sarah Palin for calling Assange un-American. I don't want to hate Sarah Palin, but give me a break. She said that the South shouldn't have attacked North Korea and that we've got to stand with North Korea. She doesn't know that North Korea is the Stalinist state. She's now come out and said that Assange is un-American. Assange is Australian, honey. But this is just getting crazier and crazier by the minute. And now they've released cables dealing with DynCorp running little kidnapped boys, which you see in the news all the time. But there is some pretty bombshell stuff in here. But could that be that the mainstream media is going through this and only covering what they want to go over? Because so much of what I've read, and I've tried to go through a lot of it, and so much of what the media has picked up on really reinforces the whole war on terror propaganda. And anybody who knows the basics understands just because some document's secret doesn't mean it's true. They had the Office of Special Plans saying they knew where the WMDs were, and that was secret. So some of the biggest propaganda you see is inside government because it's an echo chamber of brainwashing. John Young of Cryptome.org, what's your view on what I just said?
Well, all classification is used to exaggerate the importance of information. And so you shouldn't believe something because it's secret, top secret, whatever. These are glamorizing terms. And so that, and by the way, people inside secret keeping know this, and that's why the stuff leaks out. Is the really important information is not classified. In fact, you don't even know it exists. So these known classifications are subterfuges to make it seem it's important stuff. Secondly, these cables look like they were written from reading the press rather than the other way around. And as we know, that's a common way that embassies gather information is read the press and quote it as their own views.
Yeah, they've got to file reports, so they sit there with the Word document open, cutting clips out. In fact, that's already been pointed out, that a lot of this stuff was excised right out of newspapers and not even changed. So it's a bunch of neocon propaganda.
That's right, and but that's what the media, sorry to say, that's what most of the media does for a living. Either quote each other or most of them quote one or two other stories, do almost no original reporting because that takes time, and they've got a deadline to meet, they always say, and we have limited space, they always say, and so we've got to go with what everyone else is doing.
Well, look, I mean, they get a government press release, and they put that in the article, and then the embassy takes the article that's a boiled-down government press release and then puts it out as secret. That's like a few months ago, they made all the TSA workers top secret or secret clearances. That way they can't protect themselves with a union. That way they can be lied to about the terror threat. That way they can feel like they're all James Bonds. It's kind of like giving somebody at a newspaper associate editor title in lieu of pay.
You hit it right on the head. These are often ways to boost morale within an organization, is declare something secret and let you in on it. By the way, as they do this to presidents, too, as they read them into the secrecy world, and shall I go on with this?
Yeah, continue.
Yeah, is that, we have all these people outside government saying, we got to do this, we got to do that, and then they go inside and suddenly they don't say that anymore. It's usually because they've been read into the secrecy world where they're under lifetime threat to never disclose it, and they suddenly shut up. It's a one-way street, and you can never back out once you're in. That's why there are no ex-spies. Every spy has lifelong secrecy built into their blood. And that's why some of them are out there bullshitting about what they're revealing, because they're under lifetime constraint, and it's a serious constraint. But mainly is that it's a good way to make a living. Being inside the secrecy world is an awfully good thing. Of course, it started when the first church was set up, or the first kingdom was set up, so it's been around for a while, Alex. Secrecy is a narcotic against them. And the biggest threat to the secret keepers are people who are outside that world, not the other secret keepers in other countries or other churches, but those who are outside who might blow the whistle on this.
Well, I have to agree with you on this, because overall it allows the dominant media that's being supplanted by alternative media to demonize the internet, to begin to grow the surveillance grid towards the original incremental shutdown of the web. All of this happens, the web as we know it, all of this happens with the backdrop of the FCC commissioner saying freedom of speech is an aberration in the media, we're going to shut it down, government approved. All of this comes out with a backdrop of the cybersecurity legislation, which just legalizes what's already is in place. The Cyber Command admits 2 years ago they've been launching, quote, attacks against themselves to test systems. We know they hire most of the hackers. We know that Assange got in trouble many years ago and was kind of brought into that world. But I think, like Lee Harvey Oswald, there's a good chance they're, again, setting him up, or this could be all part of a big pageant, kind of like Daniel Ellsberg and the Pentagon Papers, where they tried to prosecute him, but then the case fell apart to give him street cred. We know the naval intelligence operative, Woodward, was with Deep Throat. Alexander Haig and Kissinger. Deep Throat, we know, is a composite to burn Kissinger, to burn Nixon. So the whole way this is going, it's very, very clear. But then you've almost got to support Julian Assange, because the charges against him are clearly false. I mean, not wearing a condom and consensual sex by some feminist who writes articles about how to set men up in the legal system. You can't make that up. And so you've got to support Assange, because if they're able to nail him for no reason, then I can be arrested for the secret documents that I've put out that are real, that they did not want people to get, like the MIAC and Homeland Security reports. I happen to know one of the people that leaked me stuff. They found out about other things he was doing, and he got in a lot of trouble. But I mean, this is all just incredible stuff that's going on. John, you just heard me rant about the point about Assange. I mean, if we don't support him in free speech, even though this is all basically a setup, then doesn't it set the precedent for them to come throw John Young or Alex Jones in the hoosegow?
Well, it's a good point, because, in fact, someone said on the mail list, hey, why has John Young not been charged with rape? And I had to laugh at that, because you see me compared to Assange, you know that charge would never stand up. and so that, but my point is that don't be lulled by this rape charge in Sweden. There's more coming along that line. This is just the tip of what's coming out of Sweden. And so don't forget, we're on a bombshell campaign, Alex, and every day something unexpected happens. So something in a series of unexpected things will happen on that strand while other things are happening on other strands. So this is a multi-stranded operation. And we're actually being teased with the easy stuff right now to set us up for more interesting stuff.
Well, we've seen that pattern. It's building, as you said, and I got to hand it to you. Over a year ago, you laid it out with precision. Let's go back, though, because you've been an insider in this entire world. What are your WikiLeaks sources or other hacker insiders? What are they telling you, John, that you can relay to us? What bombshells can you give us?
Well, let me tell you who they are and where you can find their names. You can find them on Wikipedia. Look up the term cypherpunk, and I'll spell that for you if you haven't heard of it.
That's a PKD term.
Cypher spelled with a Y, C-Y-P-H-P-U-N-K.
Cypherpunk, got it.
That's right. Look there and scroll down the bottom, and you'll see my name, Assange's name, several dozen names of people who all plotted all this and are still very active in this. And I've started pointing to this now. When you want to know what's behind WikiLeaks, go to this one site, and you'll see the entire gang. You'll see a whole bunch of links to other sources, and you'll see how long this has been going on and why you're not going to be able to contain it. And so that's the first thing I can tell you is that this public information has been out there for years, but no one did the slightest amount of research on this. And so that beyond this Wikipedia entry, I've got the archives of the cypherpunks mail list that went on for several years where all these issues were thoroughly discussed. This is very high-level technical material. And these are not young people like Assange. Some of these people are extremely wealthy, and they're not George Soros, who's clueless technically, and he thinks his billions makes him all-powerful, but it doesn't. It makes him rather stupid, like the CIA is stupid because of their alleged power. So these are people who are much craftier than that, but I would recommend that people take a look at the cypherpunks Wikipedia and study it.
Okay, I'm looking at the cipher. John, I'm looking at the cypherpunks on Wikipedia. Scroll up for me, guys, to the top.
Scroll down to the bottom.
Okay, but I want to make sure I've got the right entry. Go to the top for me real quick. It's the cypherpunk entry on Wikipedia, and not to be confused with the PKD cyberpunk. Okay, right. Let's scroll to the bottom now. Go ahead.
Well, go down the bottom. You'll see there's a list, a number of people who are involved in this. I'll be there. Assange is there. A number of people there that you may not have heard of, but the founder of EFF. The founder of a number of other...
John Gilmore of Sun Microsystems.
So look down there. There's some very notable people there. And they got this started in the early 90s. And I got on the board in 1994. I was amazed that there was such a group like this. Extremely intelligent, highly capable engineers, scientists, cryptographers, highly political astute people. Assange came on board in 1995. And there were several thousand people on this list. It's an amazing operation.
Okay, so it's a wide spectrum. But what's the overall political kernel to this? Is this truly independent, or is this a government agency, or is this a combine?
Well, I'm going to try to give you an answer that may be a little hard to understand. It is none of those. The intent was to have nothing that can be attacked easily. So it's not an organization. It's not an entity. It's a concept. It's a aspiration, it's a goal. It is not anything you're going to be able to take down by the usual means. That's the very purpose of it, is to not make it, and that's why I say WikiLeaks will not be taken down. It'll pop up some other way.
So you're saying it's almost like the internet is a bunch of computers connected to each other and can't be taken down. This is just basically hackers and computer experts that built a system that anybody in the group can pump info out and nobody can stop it. And that's why WikiLeaks people told the news yesterday, to take us down, you'll have to shut the web down.
That's right. That's why it was set up. It was set up as a spying machine, as I told you on your last show. But that's being used for reverse spying. But the people who set it up, as you know, was the military, and they set it up to induce people to join up because it's a very good way to surveil an entire population around the world. But now the people who are actually running it, that they hired to run it, are now reversing the panopticon.
Well, that's what I've always said. They use Google to spy on us. We use Google to spy on them with the massive group collective brain that they're not ever going to be able to stop, because they might even have the intelligence, but they don't have the personnel to deploy operations. But as long as we're an idea, a manifesto of human liberty, it's unstoppable.
Yep, that's right. Because they'll have to stop themselves if they do, because they set this up in order to control things, and they're gradually losing control.
So it's kind of like the Lord of the Rings analogy of Sauron. He makes the ring, but the ring actually controls him. So somebody can get the ring and throw it into the crack of doom.
This is always the outcome of imperialism. It eventually destroys itself.
Unbelievable. And again, you've had piercing understanding of this because you were involved from the start, and you're telling. You're talking just like government people I've talked to, like Dr. Bob Bowman, former head of Star Wars. He'll always say, well, I can give you what's open source, or they declassified this by mistake. I can tell you this. Now, go look at that. And so you're saying, look at this list. It's hidden in plain view. This is a system, a door that swings both ways. What I'm getting from what you're saying, John, is that this is out of control.
Well, it is. However, it's smart people all around. One of the things we always have to keep in mind that every time you think you got a clear understanding, someone outsmarts you. And so one of the things that I admire about the cypherpunks, they never got completely arrogant and said that we are going to run things. A few tried, and they got shot down by critics who were smarter than they were. So what I'd like to caution is don't think that you're going to get this easily. To say it's out of control, I'm saying it's going to take some work, because you'll be set up repeatedly and entrapped. And as with WikiLeaks now, they've got WikiLeaks redacting documents, so that means the fix is in, because redaction is a control mechanism.
Well, that shows that they're coming to them and saying, don't give out our agents' names. We'll go easier on you. They're already being co-opted.
Yeah, because of the money. The money is fabulous. Because they were not making money being out there on their own. So now they've raised millions by being on the inside. So why not? I mean,
well, what is your inside scoop?
If you were offered $1 million bribe, and you were 39 years old and had no other income, think about it. It's called a government contract.
Well, what's your inside intel, or your gut if you don't have the inside intel? Is this a big theater with Assange, or are they burning him for the theater?
It's a theater operation, partly entertaining, partly lulling, partly testing systems, testing public reaction. Are we going to get traction out of cyber threats or not? Will this work or not? Because so far, they've not actually caused any harm. That's why they haven't been charged.
Yeah, this is the beta testing. Now they're going to start releasing even more.
That's right. And then there'll be some lives lost, or something will happen. Because don't forget, these are cheap operations to run. And so somewhere, because this is still a fictional war, it's not a real war. It's a cyber war, which is all imaginary. And
well, let me ask you this:
it becomes really harmful, we'll see, because the law will be ready.
What is your idea, John Young from Cryptome.org, the original WikiLeaker? What is your view, your idea, and I should have you back for a full hour soon. This is incredible. I want liberty. I want freedom. I want my private property. I don't want to be a slave. I would imagine that's your view. I don't want to be part of an empire. I don't want to support all these wars in my name. So that's my view. I know I'm a good guy, but I know in ways I've been used as well, because this is such a complex world. And you can't be looking at everything at every time, so nobody's perfect. But I know I'm good, and I know I want to do good. I mean, what should I be doing from your view, and what should you be doing to somehow stop this from being used to start curtailing our speech, and then the globalists, they'll still be able to do what they want? Well,
it's what I was told as a kid. Trust no one but yourself, and warn people not to trust you. So we say on Cryptome, do not trust us. Through our ignorance, we may deceive you or betray you. Do not trust anyone who speaks with the voice of authority. And do not trust anyone who sells you protection. Do not trust anyone who sells you trust. Because their own ignorance and venality will betray you. And so that WikiLeaks will betray Bradley Manning because they've got a million reasons to do so. Well, there was a WikiLeaker that did rat him out. Well, we actually don't know what happened I'll just say, watching all this with considerable interest, it's still not clear what all we have are various kinds of fairy tales in the media. We haven't seen much evidence. We've got a lot of talk of people who are well-known liars, and most hackers are liars because that's how they social engineer. Most people on the internet lie. I lie. Are you hearing me? I lie. I'm lying to you right now. Keep that in mind. Everyone's got their agenda actions.
Well, when you say you lie, what you've put out little disinfo involving where you live or your name. I mean, you don't lie about the overall truths. I mean, are you saying you lie as like you take the address numbers off your apartment door?
No, I lie through ignorance that I don't know any better, and will not admit it. I'll pretend that I've got access to truth by the tail, and I'm delivering it to you. And so that the reason I'm lying is because I don't know how else to convey what I'm doing in an honest way. We need to work on that. Everyone exaggerates.
You know what? No one is perfect, and I think to second guess yourself. I mean, I'm not delivering pure truth, so I'm lying to you. I think it's if you consciously try to dead reckon as best you can. I think Veritas, the proof of Veritas is on the balance. Does 80+% of what you talk about come true, or 90%, or does everything you do turn out to be wrong? And I watch mainstream media; they're lying on purpose. We're here trying to tell the truth. We get some things wrong, but I mean, I know there's good people, John. I mean, my whole issue is I think part of getting into this whole world that you've been part of so long is that you're so in with all these other snakes that then it starts blinding you to the fact that there are a lot of good people.
Well, and it turns out one of the best things is to get out of your bunker and meet all these other people. So I'll say the best thing about crypto is how many people I've met, how many different views I would never have known had I not opened myself up to other people's viewpoints. So when I say I lie, is that the only counter to lying is to have discourse with other people and stop preaching at them. And listen to them closely. Let them attack you. And don't be afraid of that, because it's the only way we're going to get out of because, we're taught by education to mislead people in our own...
Yeah, we've got to stop being passive. We've got to stop being afraid. We've got to stop conforming.
That's right.
Well, we've got to be individuals. I mean, that is the biggest solution overall.
That's
and we've got to be willing...
Is great for that.
Pardon me?
And the Internet is great for that.
And we've got to be willing to go through pain, folks.
That's right. That's right. Break your bones.
Well, the best things in life come from breaking your own bones. I certainly understand what you're saying there. No, it's true.
Going to a bar and saying that, or someone will accommodate you.
Well, I'm not into that anymore, but I let them try it to accommodate. I'll accommodate them.
Alex, I grew up in Odessa, where bones are broken every night for fun.
Same here. I grew up, same thing, Texas.
Yep.
Up where I came from in Dallas, it was people going to the hospital every weekend. I love living in Austin. It's not like that. It was crazy.
That was a argument that I've gradually moved away from.
No, believe me, I've certainly moved away from it as well. I've probably got a lot fewer brain cells, and now I'm a little bit older, and it hurts where I got a compound fracture. It hurts where I broke my hand over and over again. Now, I want to get you back very, very soon, but in 30 seconds, John Young, you're saying big bombshells coming soon?
Yep. Because that's the pattern. Every one that WikiLeaks has put out has been followed by another one somewhat more shocking. And this is, as you know, this is a well-known technique boxers use. They slowly build up and just started overwhelming you with unexpected, greater attacks.
Are there any other big tidbits that you can give us today?
Yeah, I think they're going to come out with some bank stuff. I think they're going to come out.
Tell you what, stay there. I've got another guest coming up. We're going to push him back 5 minutes. I want you to talk about what you see coming up next. Then we're going to get our next guest on, holding 5 minutes for the next hour. We'll get Lord Monckton on 8 after. Finishing up with the original WikiLeaker. The cipher, punk insider, Kryptone's, lead individual, John Young. We got about 4 minutes left with you, John, and obviously we appreciate you coming on. I've seen invaluable information come out that we know that Microsoft and Yahoo don't like, how they just spy and steal everything, basically, and sell it to the government. That was in Wired Magazine now last week. The fact is we live in a system where the law is being broken by the government every millisecond. But you've been covering this stuff for decades, and it's invaluable. In closing, what are your sources telling you is coming out next? What do you see happening? Any other key tidbits?
Yep, here it is. Here's a list. And it may offend some of your listeners. Here are the sacred cows as they come out. files on weapons of mass destruction, nuclear, biological, chemical, and radiological, files on global WMD research laboratories and the status of research stocks, war plans of all nations for and against one another, reports and training literature on black prisons and torture chambers, held by and shared among the world's military and spy agencies, files of clandestine spy agencies and their operatives, files on human rights abuses, for example, the secret Red Cross reports on the world's prisons, files of billionaire political meddlers, files of the major banks and their attorneys, and most crucially, files of all the nation's tax agencies, the one key thing that keeps governments going.
Unbelievable.
Finally, and here's one that I think is probably maybe the model for all of us. What I call the crown jewels of secret information are the 2,000-year history of the Vatican's meddling in the world's governments and working with the most evil empires the earth has ever seen. Second to that is the Islamic version of those files.
Wow. Now let's go back to this Vatican situation. We know the Vatican was involved. That's open intelligence, founding the euro. We know it loves to hide itself. We know that now Lord Blackheath and others are talking about a Foundation X, richer than any government, on earth. I mean, more and more stuff that was so secretive that we'd talk about 15, 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, it's now coming out. And it all points towards an overall attack on the Internet, using the Internet to cause such havoc that it rushes the world towards some type of collapse. I mean, but briefly, go back to the Vatican here. That's incredible. I mean, specifically from insiders at WikiLeaks, you're an insider. You're saying that you've been told Vatican dirt's about to come out.
Well, I'm saying that all the world's spy agencies are based on Vatican techniques and skills. They are the keeper of secrets beyond all others. They are the spy beyond all others.
That's what Hitler said. He said it was the Jesuit model.
Well, but there was stuff before the Jesuits, because it's older than that. And so the Jesuits is almost a popular version of what they actually do. So what they do and have in their files is what we want to see, not these popular versions that we see in novels and so forth, is that we need to see the files, i.e. I'm a believer in documents, not in fairy tales. And that's why we need to see the files of the national tax agencies, not their PR shit. And so, and taxation derives from the Vatican, or Vatican-like operations. It's how you extort money from the people, with scaring them and offering salvation. And so that's what's coming.
Okay, in order, in closing, in the order you went is when this is going to be coming out, or is it a mix and match?
Well, according to WikiLeaks, the next one will be they claim they got a hard disk from a major bank. Some people are saying it's Bank of America. Now, there are a lot of these hard disks floating around because banks use these as sting operations, as does FBI. So WikiLeaks is not sure they got a real one, but they say they've got one, and they've been trying to authenticate it. And since banks are a popular target now, that's probably something like that will come out. But don't forget, they always hit us with a bombshell we didn't expect, so it could be a ploy. It's possible that something will come out of, say, like the Clinton Foundation or something, they're very astute picking something that will be popular.
All right.
That's why they played the anti-American card, because that's very popular outside the U.S.
John, I want to get you on the Sunday show to do a full hour if we can. We've had to, I understand this is a big syndicated show. I've had to delay you twice. I don't care if you use, mild cuss words, but we have to delay those out. So hopefully, I want to thank you for coming on, but hopefully I can get you on the Sunday show and have you on, and you can just use the acronym, baloney. But thank you so much coming on from cryptome.org. Amazing information there on the site, and I look forward to talking to you in the near future. I'm going to have my producer call you in about 5 minutes to see if I can get you on for a full hour coming up Sunday to really go over the bombshells you just dropped on us. Thank you.
Take care, Alex.
All right, there he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Whew, wow, that'll make your head hurt. Because it makes you think. It's so many things going on, so many things happening. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.